Steel slammed against tile and 2 guns came up at the same time. The nurse didn't flinch. She stepped in front of the hospital bed instead, whispering one word into her phone as the footsteps in the hallway got closer. The thugs thought they were finishing a job, until the doors opened and the man they tried to assassinate walked in asking his wife if she was hurt. If this story pulled you in, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss what's ahead. I've got another unforgettable story coming tomorrow. And while you're here, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing people tuned in from all over the world. Okay, let's get back into it. The sound of steel hitting tile cut through the ER like a blade. Instruments scattered. Blood pressure cuffs swung on their hooks. A nurse gasped. Another grabbed the edge of the counter. Overhead, the lights hummed their fluorescent indifference. And in the bed behind the IV stand, Mateo's monitor spiked once, then flattened into a fragile, stubborn rhythm. Stephanie Brito didn't move. Not when Ray raised the gun. Not when Finn stepped closer. Not when every instinct in that room screamed, "Get down, get back, get out of the way." She felt the ring on her finger smooth, cold, unyielding. The same ring Zeraldo had slipped on 3 years ago in a private ceremony, with no cameras, no witnesses, no trail. And somewhere in the corridor beyond the ER doors, footsteps echoed. Slow, controlled, coming closer. The 2 men pointing guns at her had no idea. They thought they were finishing a job. They were walking into a death sentence. 6 hours earlier, Street Gabriel Medical Center sits in the industrial quarter, wedged between shipping yards and century-old warehouses that smell like rust and seawater. It's not the kind of hospital that makes the news unless something goes catastrophically wrong. The paint peels in the stairwells. The elevators groan. The ER waiting room has chairs older than most of the staff, but it runs. And Stephanie Brito had been keeping it running one shift, one crisis, one saved life at a time, for longer than most people lasted in a place like this. She started her mornings the same way every time. 4th floor, break room, window facing east. Espresso from the Italian cafe, 2 blocks over the good stuff, dense and bitter and perfect. She'd watch the cranes pivot over the docks, the ships inching toward harbor, the sun crawling up from the waterline and setting the city on fire. 15 minutes of peace. Then scrubs, badge, shift. No one asked about her life outside these walls. No one knew the man she'd married. And no one ever followed her home. At 6:47 a.m., Stephanie clipped her badge to her scrub pocket and headed downstairs. The ER smelled like every ER she'd ever worked in. Antiseptic, coffee, fear. The night shift was wrapping up tired faces, stained scrubs, the particular exhaustion that comes from holding people together when they're falling apart. Quiet night? Stephanie asked Dr. Patel as he scribbled notes at the nurse's station. 3 overdoses, 1 MVA, guy with a fishing hook in his hand. He didn't look up. Your problem now. She smiled. Thanks. Oh, and we've got a GSW coming in. No name. Private transport. Should be here in 10. Stephanie's hand stilled on her coffee cup. GSW? Gunshot wound. Side entry. Stable but needs surgery. Patel finally looked up. You okay? Fine. She set the cup down carefully. I'll prep trauma too. The gurney came through the ambulance bay doors at 7:03 a.m. No sirens. No paramedics. Just 2 men in black jackets wheeling a patient covered in blankets. His face pale. His breathing shallow. Stephanie recognized the wound pattern before she saw his face. Entry wound. Lower right side. Through and through. Professional. And she recognized something else. The way the men moved. The way they didn't make eye contact. The way they left before anyone could ask questions. Mateo's eyes found hers as they transferred him to the bed. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. She knew exactly who had sent him here. Now. Ray's gun hadn't wavered in 30 seconds. Step aside, he said again. Stephanie stood in her blue scrubs, hair pulled back, no makeup, no jewelry except the ring she never took off. Behind her, Mateo lay motionless on the hospital bed, IV dripping antibiotics, chest rising and falling in shallow rhythms. The surgical tray she'd been organizing lay scattered across the floor, forceps, gauze, a scalpel glinting under the fluorescent lights. 4 other medical staff stood frozen behind cabinets and counters. Dr. Patel, 2 nurses, an intern who'd started last month, all of them staring, all of them silent. I said move. Ray's voice was steady, practiced. He wore a black hoodie, face partially obscured, but his eyes were visible, cold, certain. Finn stood to his left, gun raised but hands less steady. Younger. Newer to this. Stephanie looked at Ray without blinking. No. The word landed like a stone in still water. Ray's jaw tightened. You don't know who you're protecting. Oh. Stephanie's voice was calm, almost gentle. I do. Finn glanced at Ray, confused. Ray stepped closer. Then you know what happens if you don't move. You fire that gun in here, Stephanie said quietly. And you won't leave this building. You think hospital security scares me? No. Her eyes didn't leave his. I don't. Something in her tone made Finn hesitate. Ray didn't. Last chance. Stephanie reached into her pocket. Both guns swung toward her. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it with her thumb, typed one word, visitors, and pressed send. The footsteps in the hallway stopped. For 3 seconds, there was only silence. The hum of the lights, the beep of Mateo's monitor, the distant sound of someone paging a doctor over the intercom. Then the footsteps resumed, slower, closer. Ray heard them first. His eyes flicked toward the corridor, then back to Stephanie, then back to the corridor. Finn's gun hand started to shake. Who's coming? Ray demanded. Stephanie didn't answer. She didn't need to. The double doors to the ER pushed open, and Zeraldo Brito walked in. He wore a black tailored suit, no tie, the collar open enough to show the tattoos that ran up his neck and disappeared beneath the fabric. Dark hair slicked back, hands relaxed at his sides, no weapon visible. He didn't need one. He moved like water, controlled, inevitable. His eyes found Stephanie first. Are you hurt? His voice was low, calm. She shook her head once. Only then did he look at the guns. Ray's hand trembled. Finn lowered his weapon slightly, instinct overriding orders. Zeraldo closed the distance in 4 steps. His hand moved so fast Ray didn't see it coming. Wrist twisted. Gun dropped. Knee to the ribs. Ray hit the floor gasping. Finn swung his gun toward Zeraldo, too slow, too uncertain, too late. Zeraldo caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted, and drove him into the wall with one hand. The gun clattered across the tile and skidded to a stop near the nurse's station. No shots fired. No chaos. Just efficiency. Brutal. Controlled. Absolute. The entire room stood frozen. Dr. Patel stared. The intern's mouth hung open. Stephanie didn't look surprised. She turned back to Mateo's monitor, checked his vitals, adjusted the IV drip. Like nothing had happened. Zeraldo knelt beside Ray, who was still gasping for air on the floor. He leaned close, spoke quietly enough that only Ray could hear. You came to my wife's hospital. You aimed a gun at my wife. Do you understand what that means? Ray's eyes went wide. Understanding hit him like ice water. He'd walked into something he couldn't survive. Zeraldo stood, looked at Finn, still pinned against the wall. Same question. Finn nodded frantically. Footsteps echoed from the ambulance bay. 3 men in dark suits entered. No badges. No uniforms. They moved with the same controlled precision as Zeraldo. He gestured once. They hauled Ray and Finn to their feet and walked them toward the exit. No one stopped them. No one called security. No one said a word. Zeraldo turned back to Stephanie. She was reading Mateo's chart. Completely focused. Completely calm. He walked to her side, stood close enough that his shoulder brushed hers. I'll handle this, he said quietly. I know. No one will come here again. I know. He looked at her for a long moment. Then at the ring on her finger. She met his eyes. Steady, unafraid. He nodded once and walked out. The ER doors swung shut behind him. Silence settled like dust. Dr. Patel finally found his voice. Who? Was that? Stephanie didn't look up from the chart. Just a visitor. The whispers started before Stephanie's shift ended. She heard them in the supply closet. Caught fragments near the medication dispensary. Felt the weight of eyes following her down every corridor. Did you see him? The way he moved. Who was that guy? Is he her? No one asked her directly. No one dared. Stephanie finished her charting. Checked on Mateo one last time, stable, sleeping. Guards posted outside his room that no one questioned, and clocked out at 3:47 p.m. The same black car waited in the staff parking lot. The same driver who never spoke. The same tinted windows that hid her from the world. She slid into the back seat and let her head fall against the leather headrest. Her hands were steady. They'd been steady all day. But now, alone in the silence, she felt the adrenaline finally begin to drain. She closed her eyes and remembered the first time she'd seen those same hands covered in blood. 3 years and 4 months earlier. The penthouse bathroom was all white marble and gold fixtures. Stephanie had been there exactly twice before. Once for dinner. Once because Zeraldo had asked her to come, no explanation, just urgency in his voice she'd never heard before. She arrived at 11:30 p.m. with her nursing bag. He opened the door himself. No staff, no security visible. His white shirt was soaked through with blood on the left side. "It's not as bad as it looks," he said. She pushed past him without a word, set her bag on the marble counter, washed her hands, snapped on gloves. "Sit." He sat on the edge of the bathtub. She cut away the shirt, found the wound, glass embedded in his shoulder from the window he'd gone through during the nightclub ambush she'd heard about on the news. They'd called it gang violence, blamed it on turf wars. She knew better. She'd been dating Zeraldo Brito for 6 months, long enough to know what he was, not long enough to have seen it this close. Her hands moved automatically. Tweezers, saline, gauze. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just watched her face. "You should go to a hospital," she said quietly. "No, Zeraldo. No hospitals, no records." His voice was firm, gentle. "Just you." She pulled the last shard of glass free, dropped it into the trash with a sharp clink. "This is what your life is." It wasn't a question. Yes. She cleaned the wound, applied antibiotic ointment, began suturing with practiced precision. "And if I stay," she said, eyes on her work, "this is what my life becomes." He was quiet for a long moment. "I would understand if you left." Her hands paused, just for a second. She'd thought about it. Of course she had. Zeraldo Brito was not a good man by any conventional measure. He controlled territory. He made people disappear. He operated in shadows and violence and power that most people only saw in movies. But he'd also been the first man who'd ever looked at her like she was the answer to a question he didn't know how to ask. He'd never lied to her, never pretended to be something he wasn't. He'd told her the truth from the first night they'd met at a charity gala, where he'd been the largest anonymous donor, and she'd been there representing the hospital. "I'm not a good man," he'd said over champagne. "But I'm an honest one." She tied off the last suture. "I'm not leaving, Stephanie. But we have rules." She stripped off her gloves, met his eyes. "My hospital stays clean. No business, no violence, no overlap." "Agreed. And if this gets too dangerous, I'll step back." He caught her hand. Gentle, deliberate. "I promise." She didn't believe he could, but she believed he meant it. And somehow, that was enough. 2 years and 8 months earlier, the wedding was in a private estate outside the city. 17 people total. No photographers, no announcement, no public record. Stephanie wore a simple white dress, no veil, no train. Zeraldo wore a black suit, no tie. The officiant was a retired judge who owed Zeraldo a favor and knew how to keep his mouth shut. The vows were traditional, short, sincere. When Zeraldo slid the platinum band onto her finger, his hands were completely steady. When she did the same, hers trembled. Not from fear, from the weight of what she was choosing. The reception lasted 2 hours. Champagne, a small dinner, no speeches. Zeraldo's men stood at a respectful distance. Present but not intrusive. At 9 p.m., he pulled her aside onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. The city lights glittered in the distance. "You can still change your mind," he said quietly. She looked at the ring on her finger, then at him. "Can you?" "No." He smiled, rare, genuine, devastating. "Not about you." She kissed him. And in that moment, Stephanie understood something fundamental about the choice she'd made. Love was not always clean. It was not always safe. But it was hers. 18 months earlier, she came home to find him sitting in the dark, blood on his knuckles, suit jacket discarded, tie loose. She didn't turn on the lights, just set down her bag, walked to the bathroom, came back with the first aid kit, knelt in front of him, took his hands in hers. "Bad night?" she asked softly. "Yes." She cleaned the blood away. His knuckles were split, bruised. She'd seen worse. "Do I want to know?" "No." She wrapped his hands carefully, precisely. He watched her work, the way he always did, like she was performing surgery instead of basic wound care. "I don't deserve you," he said. She looked up. "Probably not." He almost smiled. "But you have me anyway." She finished the wrapping, pressed a kiss to his knuckles. "For better or worse?" "Worse, mostly. I knew what I was signing up for." "Did you?" She sat back on her heels, studied his face, the exhaustion, the weight of choices she'd never have to make. "I knew enough." He pulled her into his lap, buried his face in her neck. She held him. and understood something else. He was terrifying to everyone, except her. To her, he was just a man who carried too much weight and refused to let anyone else shoulder it. Until her, present day, the car pulled into the private estate's driveway. Stephanie walked through the front door, set down her bag, kicked off her shoes. Zeraldo was standing in the kitchen, phone in hand, already making calls. He looked up when she entered. Mateo's stable? Yes. The staff? Shaken, but quiet. He nodded, set down the phone, crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled her into his arms. She let herself sink into him, just for a moment. I'm sorry, he said against her hair. I know. It won't happen again. You can't promise that. I can try. She pulled back, looked up at him. They aimed guns at me in my hospital, Zeraldo. I know. They brought your world into mine. I know. The line we drew is still there. His hands framed her face, gentle, absolute. I will burn down everything before I let anyone cross it again. She believed him. That was the problem. She believed him completely. And part of her, the part that had chosen him 3 years ago in a bathroom with glass shards and blood, wasn't even sorry. 4 days earlier, the meeting was supposed to be neutral ground. An old warehouse on the east side, converted into a private event space that hosted everything from corporate retreats to underground poker games. The kind of place where questions weren't asked and security cameras didn't work. Zeraldo arrived at 10 p.m. with 3 men. The Kovac syndicate sent 4. It was supposed to be a negotiation. Territory lines. Port access. The kind of conversation that happened in shadows between men who controlled things the city pretended didn't exist. Zeraldo knew it was a trap the moment he walked in. The tells were subtle, almost invisible. Dmitry Kovac's second-in-command kept glancing at the mezzanine level, the guards positioned too precisely near the exits, the way Dmitry himself sat too far back from the table, like he was expecting the furniture to explode. Zeraldo had survived 15 years in this world by trusting his instincts, and every instinct he had was screaming. He kept his expression neutral, sat down across from Dmitry, folded his hands on the table. You wanted to talk, Zeraldo said. Let's talk. Dmitry smiled, cold, practiced. You've been expanding into territories that don't belong to you. I've been filling vacuums that were left empty, by people we removed. Then you should have held the ground. The temperature in the room dropped. Dmitry's smile vanished. You're going to give back the port access, and the distribution networks, and you're going to pay for the privilege of breathing in this city. Zeraldo didn't move. No. Then we have nothing else to discuss. Dmitry stood, and that's when Zeraldo saw it. A red laser dot, flickering across the table, moving toward his chest. Mateo saw it too. He was standing near the door, ostensibly as security, but really as Zeraldo's eyes on the exits. He'd been with Zeraldo for 7 years, loyal, observant, smart enough to know when something was wrong. The laser dot appeared on the mezzanine railing. Mateo's eyes tracked up, saw the rifle barrel, saw the shooter adjusting position. He had maybe 2 seconds. He lunged forward. Down! The first shot punched through the air where Zeraldo's head had been half a second earlier. The second shot hit the table and sent splinters flying. The third shot caught Mateo in the side as he tackled Zeraldo behind a steel support column. Chaos erupted. Zeraldo's men returned fire. Dmitry's guards pulled weapons. The mezzanine shooter repositioned. And through it all, Zeraldo's mind worked with cold, mechanical precision. This wasn't just a hit. This was a decapitation. Mateo was bleeding against him, hand pressed to his side, breath coming in sharp gasps. I'm fine, Mateo gritted out. Go. Not without you. Zeraldo. Not without you. Another shot sparked off the column. Zeraldo pulled Mateo to his feet, hauled him toward the service corridor he'd clocked when they'd first arrived. Always have an exit. Always have a backup. Always assume betrayal. His men provided covering fire. One went down, then another. Zeraldo dragged Mateo through the corridor door and slammed it shut. Found the emergency exit. Kicked it open. The alley was dark, empty. A car waited at the far end. Not his car. A different one. The driver's window rolled down. A woman Zeraldo had never seen before leaned out. Get in, now. Mateo stumbled. Zeraldo caught him. Who are you? Someone who doesn't want you dead. She gestured urgently. They have the street blocked both ways. This is your only window. Zeraldo made the calculation in 2 seconds. Unknown variable versus certain death. He shoved Mateo into the back seat and climbed in after him. The car was moving before the door even closed. The driver navigated side streets with practiced precision. No GPS, no hesitation. She knew exactly where she was going. Zeraldo kept pressure on Mateo's wound. The blood was soaking through his shirt. Too much, too fast. Hospital, Zeraldo said. They'll be watching hospitals. He's bleeding out. I know a place. The woman's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. Private clinic. No questions. No. Zeraldo's voice was absolute. Street Gabriel Medical Center. That's suicide. Street Gabriel, East Entrance. 10 minutes. Something in his tone made her stop arguing. She changed course. Mateo's breathing was getting shallow. Stay with me, Zeraldo said quietly. Shouldn't have. Pushed you. You saved my life. That's the job. No. Zeraldo's hand pressed harder on the wound. That was loyalty, and I don't forget loyalty. Mateo tried to smile. Failed. Your wife. Gonna kill me. For bleeding. In her hospital. She'll save you first. Kill you later. This time Mateo did smile. Then his eyes started to close. Mateo, look at me. His eyes fluttered open. You stay awake. You understand? You stay with me until we get there. Trying. Try harder. They arrived at St. Gabriel at 10:47 p.m. The driver pulled up to the east entrance. Emergency access. Staff only. Zeraldo didn't question how she knew. He pulled Mateo out of the car. The woman helped support his other side. You're sure about this? She asked. Yes. They'll come looking. Let them. She studied his face. Saw something there that made her nod. Good luck. She got back in the car and disappeared into the night. Zeraldo never saw her again. Never learned her name. Never knew why she'd been there. Some mysteries, he decided, weren't worth solving. The ER doors opened. A nurse he didn't recognize looked up, saw the blood, grabbed a gurney. GSW, right side, through and through, Zeraldo said with clinical precision. Name? No name. No records. Private transport. The nurse hesitated. Zeraldo pulled out a roll of cash, set it on the counter. This pays for silence, not just treatment. She looked at the money, then at Mateo, who was barely conscious. She made the choice every nurse makes when faced with impossible decisions. Save the life in front of you. Deal with questions later. Trauma too, she said. Move. They wheeled Mateo through the corridor. Zeraldo stayed close. His phone buzzed. Messages flooding in. 2 men down. Dimitri's crew scattered. Shooter escaped. Buildings clear. He typed one response. Find out who paid Dimitri. I want names by morning. Then he typed a second message. To the only person he trusted completely. Need you. St. Gabriel. East Wing. GSW. Don't ask questions yet. The response came in 30 seconds. I'm here. Trauma too? Yes. I'll handle it. Stephanie appeared in the doorway 6 minutes later. She took one look at Mateo, then at Zeraldo. Her expression didn't change. Out, she said to the other nurse. Dr. Patel said, I've got this. Out. The nurse left. Stephanie washed her hands, snapped on gloves, began assessing the wound with practiced efficiency. Through and through. Missed major organs. Lucky. Can you save him? Yes. She didn't look up. Can you tell me who shot him? Not yet. Can you tell me if they'll come here? Zeraldo was quiet. She finally looked at him, saw the answer in his eyes. Zeraldo. I'll have men outside. Discreet. No one will know he's here. You promised. I know what I promised. His voice was raw. Honest. And I'm breaking it. Because he saved my life. And I won't let him die for it. Stephanie looked at Mateo. At the wound. At the blood. At the choice in front of her. The line they'd drawn. And the man she'd married. She made her decision. Fine. But this never happens again. It won't. You can't know that. I can try. She returned to work. Prepping for surgery. Moving with the calm precision that had first made him fall in love with her. Zeraldo watched her save another life. And wondered how long before his world destroyed hers completely. He didn't know the answer. But 4 days later, when 2 men with guns walked into her hospital, he would find out exactly what happened when someone crossed the only line he'd ever actually cared about. Day 1 after the attempt, Stephanie performed the surgery at 2:17 a.m. with Dr. Patel assisting. No one asked questions. Not about the patient's name listed as John Doe in the system. Not about the cash that appeared in the hospital's discretionary fund the next morning. Not about the 2 men in expensive suits who took up position in the hallway outside Trauma 2 and didn't leave. Street Gabriel Medical Center had been serving the industrial quarter for 43 years. It had learned, long ago, that some questions were better left unasked. Stephanie extracted the bullet fragments, repaired the damaged tissue, closed the wound in neat, precise sutures that would heal clean. Matteo survived, and when she finally stripped off her gloves at 4:38 a.m., Zeraldo was still waiting. He stood when she emerged from the OR. "He'll live," she said quietly. The relief in his eyes was immediate. Raw. "Thank you." "Don't thank me." She pulled off her surgical cap. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders. "This can't happen again, Zeraldo. I know. I mean it. You brought this here, to my hospital. I had no choice. There's always a choice." Her voice was firm, not angry, just absolutely certain. "And you chose to cross the line we drew." He didn't argue, couldn't argue. She was right. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Security, discreet, no uniforms, no weapons visible. And the moment Matteo can be moved safely, he disappears. Done. And you need to find out who did this. Already working on it." She studied his face. The exhaustion, the controlled violence simmering just beneath the surface. "Be careful," she said softly. "I'm always careful." "No, you're always strategic. There's a difference." She kissed his cheek, brief, gentle, then walked away to finish her shift. Left him standing in the hallway with the weight of everything he'd brought into her world. Day 2. Zeraldo didn't sleep. He made calls, pulled strings, applied pressure in all the places pressure worked best. By noon, he had a name. Gregor Sidorov. A broker. A facilitator. The kind of man who arranged things for people who wanted their hands to stay clean. Dmitry Kovac had paid him $60,000 to coordinate the assassination. But Dmitry was small-time, mid-level. He didn't have the resources or the nerve to move against Zeraldo without backing. Someone bigger had ordered it. Someone with reach. Someone who wanted Zeraldo gone badly enough to risk open war. Zeraldo sat in his estate office, city skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, and played the chess game 3 moves ahead. Who benefits from my death? Who's been quietly consolidating while I've been expanding? Who has the connections to hire Sidorov and the ambition to gamble on a public hit? The answer came to him at 3:47 p.m. Alexei Reznik. Russian syndicate. Old money. Careful operations. He'd been circling Zeraldo's territory for 2 years, never quite moving against him directly, always working through proxies. This had his fingerprints all over it. Zeraldo picked up his phone, made one call. "Find Sidorov. I want him alive. I want him talking, and I want it done quietly." The response was immediate. "Consider it done." Day 3. Stephanie checked on Matteo 4 times during her shift. Each time, he was awake, alert, healing faster than most GSW patients. "You're stubborn," she said, adjusting his IV. Family trait. He managed a weak smile. "You know who I am." It wasn't a question. Matteo nodded carefully. "Known since the beginning. Zeraldo doesn't hide things from people he trusts. And you're one of those people. I try to be." She checked his vitals. Blood pressure good. Temperature normal. No signs of infection. "Why did you take the bullet for him?" Matteo was quiet for a moment. "Because some men are worth dying for, and Zeraldo's one of them. Even knowing what he is. Especially knowing what he is." Matteo's eyes were steady. Sincere. "He's not a good man, but he's a loyal one. And in our world, that's rarer than you'd think." Stephanie understood that more than she wanted to admit. "The men who shot you," she said carefully. "They're going to want to finish what they started." "I know. And they might trace you here." "I know that too." She met his eyes. "If they come to my hospital, I won't let them hurt you." "You shouldn't make promises like that." "I'm not making a promise." Her voice was calm. "Absolute. I'm drawing a line." Matteo studied her face. Saw the same steel that Zeraldo had fallen in love with. "He's lucky to have you," Matteo said quietly. "We'll see if you still think that when this is over." Day 4 morning. Gregor Sidorov was found in a warehouse on the south side. He talked for 47 minutes, gave up everything. Dmitry Kovac was just the trigger man. The money came from Reznik. The plan had been in motion for 6 months. Kill Zeraldo, destabilize his operations, move in before his lieutenants could consolidate power. Clean, simple, efficient. Except Matteo had seen the laser sight. 1 loyal man, 2 seconds of warning. The difference between a successful coup and a declaration of war. Zeraldo listened to the recording of Sidorov's confession, then made 3 calls. First, to his lawyers. Freeze Reznik's legitimate business holdings. legal warfare. Second, to his financial contacts. Cut Resnick's access to cash flow. Economic pressure. Third, to his most trusted lieutenants. Prepare for retaliation. Strategic positioning. He didn't want war. War was expensive, messy, unpredictable, but he would absolutely finish what Resnick had started. Day 4 afternoon. Alexei Resnick received the first blow at 2 p.m., his primary shipping contract canceled, his main distributor suddenly unavailable, his offshore accounts frozen pending investigation. By 5 p.m., he understood. Zeraldo wasn't dead, and he knew exactly who'd ordered the hit. Resnick made a call. "We have a problem." "I'm aware," came the cold response. "He's moving against us. Fast. Then move faster. He has the survivor, the one who warned him. If he talks, then make sure he doesn't. He's in a hospital, protected. I don't care if he's in a fortress. Find him. Finish this." The line went dead. Resnick stared at his phone, then made another call. "I need a team. 2 men. Hospital job. St. Gabriel Medical Center. There's a GSW patient. No name. Trauma wing. I need him gone." "When?" "Tonight. It'll cost extra. I don't care what it costs. Just get it done." Day 4 evening. Stephanie felt it before she saw it. The shift in atmosphere. The way the security guard Zeraldo had posted suddenly went on alert. The way her phone buzzed with a message at 6:47 p.m. "They know where Mateo is. Team inbound. Stay away from Trauma 2. She stared at the message, then at the hallway leading to Trauma 2. Then at the phone again. She typed back. "No." The response was immediate. "Stephanie, please. This is my hospital, my patient, my line. I'm handling this. Stay out of it. Zeraldo. I'm not leaving." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Then I'm coming to you." She pocketed her phone, walked to Trauma 2, checked on Mateo one more time. "Company coming?" he asked quietly. "Maybe. You should go." "Not a chance. Stephanie. Rest. Save your strength." She walked out to the nurse's station, organized her supplies, checked her equipment, and waited. The line had been drawn 3 years ago. Tonight, someone was going to try to cross it, and they were about to learn exactly what happened when you threatened something Stephanie Brito had decided to protect. She touched the ring on her finger. Steady, calm, ready. 2 men in black hoodies entered the hospital at 7:23 p.m. They moved like professionals. Calm, purposeful, scanning for cameras, checking exits. They reached the ER at 7:31 p.m., found Trauma 2, saw the patient on the bed, drew their weapons, and walked directly into the one thing Alexei Resnick hadn't accounted for. A woman who'd married into violence, who understood it, who respected it, but who absolutely refused to let it touch the one place she'd claimed as sacred. Stephanie Brito stepped between the guns and the hospital bed, and everything that happened next became inevitable. The surgical tray hit the floor at 7:33 p.m. Metal instruments scattered across tile in a sound that didn't belong in a hospital. Forceps, gauze packets, a scalpel that spun twice before settling near the wall. Stephanie had been reaching for it when she saw them. 2 men, black hoodies, faces partially obscured. Moving with purpose toward Trauma 2, she dropped the tray deliberately, let it crash, let everyone hear, let them know something was wrong. The reaction was immediate. Dr. Patel froze mid-stride near the medication cart. 2 nurses ducked behind the counter. An intern pressed himself against the wall, and Stephanie Brito stepped directly into the doorway of Trauma 2, blocking the entrance with her body. Ray saw her first. He was older, mid-30s, hard eyes, practiced movements. His gun came up smooth, professional, aimed past her shoulder at Mateo, who lay on the hospital bed, IV dripping, chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Finn stood to his left. Younger. Maybe 25. His weapon wasn't quite as steady. "Step aside," Ray said. His voice was calm, matter of fact, like he was asking her to move out of the way in a grocery store aisle. Stephanie didn't move. Behind her, she heard Mateo's monitor beep. Steady, stable. She felt the weight of her phone in her pocket. The message already sent. Visitors. 1 word. That's all it had taken. "Step aside," Ray repeated. Stephanie looked at him directly. "No." The word landed in the ER like a stone. Dr. Patel's eyes went wide. The nurses behind the counter exchanged glances. The intern looked like he might pass out. Finn shifted his weight. Uncertain. Ray's expression didn't change. "You don't want to do this," he said. You're right. Stephanie's voice was steady, calm, almost conversational. I don't want to do this, but here we are. We're not here for you. You're in my hospital, pointing guns at my patient. You're absolutely here for me. Ray took a step closer. Stephanie held her ground. Behind her, she heard Matteo try to sit up, heard the rustle of sheets and the catch in his breathing. Stay down, she said without turning around. Stephanie, Matteo's voice was weak, strained. I said stay down. Ray's jaw tightened. Last chance. Move or this gets ugly. It's already ugly. Stephanie's eyes never left his. You brought guns into a hospital. You threatened a patient under my care. The only question now is how this ends. It ends with him dead. No. Her voice dropped. Absolute. Final. It doesn't. Finn spoke for the first time. Ray, maybe we should... Shut up. But Stephanie saw it. The hesitation in Finn's eyes. The way his gun hand trembled just slightly. He didn't want to be here. He was following orders. Not conviction. That was exploitable. You don't have to do this, Stephanie said, looking at Finn now. Whatever they're paying you, it's not worth it. Don't talk to him, Ray snapped. Why not? Because he might listen? Because he knows what happens if we walk out of here empty-handed. And what happens if you don't walk out at all? Ray's eyes narrowed. You think hospital security scares me? No. Stephanie's expression didn't change. I don't. Something in her tone made both men pause. The confidence, the certainty, like she knew something they didn't. Ray stepped closer, close enough that Stephanie could smell cigarette smoke on his jacket. You're protecting a criminal. You know that, right? I'm protecting a patient. He's a gunman. He works for... I don't care who he works for. Stephanie cut him off. Inside this hospital, he's a human being with a GSW who needs medical care, and that's all that matters. Noble. Ray's voice dripped sarcasm. But stupid. Maybe. You're going to die for him? Stephanie was quiet for a moment. She thought about Zeraldo, about the bathroom 3 years ago, about glass shards and blood and the choice she'd made to stay, about every choice since then. If I have to, she said quietly. Ray stared at her, trying to find the angle, the leverage, trying to understand what kind of person stood between 2 loaded guns and certain death without flinching. You don't know who you're protecting, he said finally. Stephanie almost smiled. Oh, I do. The confusion on Ray's face was immediate. Finn lowered his gun slightly, completely lost. What? Ray demanded. Stephanie reached into her pocket. Both guns swung toward her. Easy, she said. Just my phone. She pulled it out slowly, unlocked it with her thumb, showed them the screen. 1 word sent. 7 minutes ago. Visitors. Who did you... Ray started. Then he heard them. Footsteps. In the corridor beyond the ER entrance. Not running. Not rushing. Slow. Controlled. Deliberate. The sound of someone who didn't need to hurry, because they knew exactly what they were walking into. Ray's face went pale. No, he whispered. The footsteps got closer. Finn backed up a step. Then another. Ray? Who is that? Ray didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because he'd just put together what Stephanie had known from the moment they walked in. This wasn't some random hospital. This wasn't some random patient. And she wasn't some random nurse. The double doors to the ER pushed open. Zeraldo Brito entered like a storm front. Black tailored suit. No tie. Shirt open at the collar showing the tattoos that crawled up his neck. Dark hair slicked back. Hands loose at his sides. No weapon visible. He didn't need one. The air itself seemed to change when he walked in. Pressure. Weight. Inevitability. His eyes found Stephanie first. Scanned her head to toe. Looking for injuries. For blood. For anything wrong. Are you hurt? His voice was low. Calm. Stephanie shook her head once. No. Only then did he look at the guns. At Ray, who'd gone completely still. At Finn, whose weapon was now pointed at the floor. At the surgical tray scattered across the tile. At the frozen staff behind the counter. At everything that had happened in his wife's hospital while he wasn't there to stop it. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went absolutely cold. Ray understood in that moment. He'd walked into something he couldn't walk out of. You came to my wife's hospital, Zeraldo said quietly. Ray's gun hand started to shake. You pointed guns at my wife. Finn dropped his weapon entirely. It clattered on the floor. You threatened her life. Zeraldo took a step forward, then another, moving like water. Like violence waiting for permission. Do you understand? He continued, voice still calm, still controlled. What that means? Ray tried to aim his gun, tried to fire, tried to do anything. but his hands wouldn't obey, because standing in front of him wasn't just a man, it was a reckoning. Zeraldo closed the distance in 3 steps. His hand moved faster than Ray could track, caught his wrist, twisted. The gun dropped. Ray swung wild with his other hand. Zeraldo caught that too. Drove his knee into Ray's ribs with surgical precision. Ray gasped, dropped. Finn tried to run. Made it 2 steps. Zeraldo was faster, grabbed him by the jacket, slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster, held him there with one hand. "Please," Finn started. "Who sent you?" "I don't." Zeraldo's hand tightened. "Who sent you? Resnick? Alexei Resnick?" Zeraldo nodded once, released him. Finn collapsed to the floor next to Ray. Both men lay there, breathing hard, bleeding slightly, alive, but only because Zeraldo wanted them that way. The ER was completely silent. Dr. Patel stared in shock. The nurses hadn't moved. The intern looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Stephanie walked calmly to Mateo's bedside, checked his monitor, adjusted his IV, like nothing had happened. "Pressure's stable," she said quietly. Mateo managed a weak smile. "You're terrifying, you know that?" "I've been told." Footsteps echoed from the ambulance bay. 3 men in dark suits entered, moving with the same controlled precision as Zeraldo. He gestured once. They hauled Ray and Finn to their feet, walked them toward the exit. No one stopped them. No one said a word. Zeraldo turned to Stephanie. She was still focused on Mateo's chart. He walked to her, stood close. "I'll handle this," he said quietly. "I know. No one will come here again." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." She looked up at him, saw the absolute certainty in his eyes. "And the cost of that certainty." "Go," she said softly. "Do what you need to do." He touched her face, brief, gentle, then walked out of the ER. The doors swung shut behind him. Silence settled like ash. Dr. Patel finally found his voice. "Who was that?" Stephanie returned to her charting. "Just a visitor." The black SUV pulled away from St. Gabriel Medical Center at 7:52 p.m. Ray and Finn sat in the back seat, hands zip-tied behind them, flanked by 2 of Zeraldo's men who hadn't spoken a single word. Zeraldo sat in the passenger seat, silent, still, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. The driver navigated through the industrial quarter, past shuttered warehouses and empty lots, toward the part of the city where streetlights stopped working and no one called the police. Ray tried once to speak. "Listen, we were just..." The man beside him drove an elbow into his ribs. Ray gasped. "Shut up." Finn was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. He was 24 years old, 3 months into working for Resnick's crew. This was supposed to be easy money, simple jobs, no real danger. He'd been lied to. Zeraldo's phone buzzed. He answered without checking the ID. "Talk." "Estate is secure. Room's ready." The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Good. 20 minutes." He ended the call, looked at Ray in the rearview mirror. "You made a mistake tonight." Ray said nothing. "You walked into my wife's hospital. You pointed a gun at my wife. You threatened the one thing in this world I've tried to keep separate from what I do." Zeraldo's voice was perfectly calm. Somehow that made it worse. "I've killed men for less. You understand that, right?" Ray nodded slowly. "But I'm not going to kill you." Zeraldo turned in his seat, made eye contact. "Not yet. First you're going to tell me everything. Who sent you? How they found Mateo? What else they're planning?" "I don't know anything." "Yes, you do. And you're going to tell me, because the alternative is so much worse than death that you can't even imagine it." Finn sobbed harder. Ray stared at Zeraldo, saw something in those eyes that made his bladder clench. This wasn't a man. This was a force of nature. And they'd made the fatal mistake of getting in his way. The estate sat on 12 acres outside the city limits. No neighbors, no witnesses, no one to hear anything that happened inside. The SUV pulled through the gate at 8:14 p.m., drove past manicured gardens and a fountain that looked like it belonged in a European plaza, stopped at a secondary building, separate from the main house, soundproof. The men hauled Ray and Finn out of the vehicle, marched them inside. Down a hallway with concrete floors and fluorescent lights, into a room with a drain in the center of the floor. 2 chairs, both bolted down. They were shoved into the seats. Zip ties cut, hands secured with metal cuffs attached to the chair arms. Finn was hyperventilating now. Ray tried to stay calm, tried to think. There had to be a way out of this. There had to be. Zeraldo walked in. He'd removed his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves. The tattoos on his forearms were visible now. Intricate, deliberate. each one marking something. Someone. A history written in ink and violence. He pulled up a third chair, sat down facing them, folded his hands. Let's begin. Ray broke first. It took 11 minutes. No torture. No physical pain. Just questions. And the growing certainty that lying would make things exponentially worse. Resnick sent us, Ray said finally. Alexei Resnick. I know that. Tell me something I don't know. He's been planning this for months. The hit on you. Taking your territory. He's got backing. Financial. Political. From who? I don't know. I swear I don't know. That's above my level. Zeraldo studied his face. Believed him. How did you find Mateo? Tracker. We got a signal from the warehouse where the hit went down. Followed it to the hospital. What tracker? In his phone. We didn't know it was there until after he ran. Zeraldo's jaw tightened. Someone on his side had planted a tracker. Someone close enough to access Mateo's phone. Internal betrayal. That complicated things. Who else knows Mateo's at Street Gabriel? Just us. And Resnick. You reported in? Before we went in, yeah. What did you tell him? That we found the target. We were going in to finish it. Did you tell him the hospital name? Ray hesitated. Zeraldo leaned forward. Did you tell him? Yes. Zeraldo stood, walked to the corner of the room, pulled out his phone, made a call. Pull Mateo out of Street Gabriel. Now. They know where he is. A pause. I don't care if he's stable. Move him. Private location. No records. Another pause. And double security on Stephanie. If anyone even looks at her wrong, I want to know about it. He ended the call, turned back to Ray and Finn. What else? Finn told them about the financial operation. How Resnick had been systematically undermining Zeraldo's legitimate businesses, shell companies, frozen assets, legal challenges designed to bleed resources. The assassination was supposed to be the final blow. Remove Zeraldo. Chaos follows. Resnick sweeps in and consolidates everything. Clean. Efficient. Except it hadn't worked. He's going to try again, Finn said through tears. He has to. He's already committed. If he backs down now, he looks weak. And in this world, weakness is death, Zeraldo finished. I know. He paced the room, processing, calculating. Resnick had made this personal. Not just business, not just territory. He'd sent men to Stephanie's hospital. He'd crossed the one line Zeraldo had made absolutely clear. That changed everything. Here's what's going to happen, Zeraldo said quietly. I'm going to dismantle everything Resnick has built. His businesses, his connections, his reputation. And then, when he has nothing left, when everyone he trusted has abandoned him, I'm going to give him a choice. Ray stared at him. What choice? Disappear, or die. He'll never disappear. His pride. Then he'll die. Zeraldo's voice was flat. Final. I don't actually care which he chooses. At 9:47 p.m., Zeraldo's phone rang. Stephanie. He answered immediately. Are you okay? I'm fine. Her voice was steady, calm. Mateo's being moved? Yes. Safer location. You could have told me. I'm telling you now. She was quiet for a moment. The staff is asking questions. Let them ask. Zeraldo. What do you want me to say, Stephanie? That I'm sorry? I am. That it won't happen again? I'll do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't, but I can't change what already happened. I know. Her voice softened. I'm not angry. I'm just processing. Are you safe? I have 3 of your men outside the ER pretending to be contractors. It's a little obvious. Despite everything, he almost smiled. They'll be subtle. They're carrying concealed weapons in a hospital. There's no subtle. They'll try. She sighed. When will you be home? Late. I have things to handle. Things. Yes. Will these things involve violence? He was quiet. Zeraldo. Some, he admitted, but controlled, strategic, nothing that traces back to you. That's not what I'm worried about. Then what are you worried about? You? Her voice was soft. Honest. I'm worried about you. Something in his chest tightened. After everything. After guns in her hospital. After threats to her life. She was worried about him. I'll be careful, he said. Promise me. I promise. I love you. I love you too. He ended the call, stood there for a moment, then turned back to Ray and Finn. Last question, he said. Does Resnick know who Stephanie is? Does he know she's my wife? Ray shook his head. No. No one knows. We didn't even know until you showed up. Zeraldo nodded slowly. That was something, at least. Stephanie's anonymity was still intact, her protection, still possible. What happens to us? Finn asked quietly. Zeraldo looked at him. Young, stupid, terrified, reminded him of men he'd known years ago. Men who'd made bad choices and paid for them. Men he'd killed without hesitation. But tonight felt different. Tonight, mercy felt like a weapon. You're going to disappear, Zeraldo said. New city, new names, new lives. And if I ever see either of you again, if you ever come near this city, near my territory, near anyone I care about, I will finish what I started tonight. Understood? Both men nodded frantically. Good. Zeraldo gestured to his men. Get them out of here. At 11:23 p.m., Zeraldo finally headed home. The estate was quiet. Dark except for a single light in the bedroom window. Stephanie was waiting. She always waited. He walked through the front door, set down his keys, climbed the stairs, found her sitting on the bed, still in her scrubs, reading a medical journal. She looked up when he entered, set the journal aside, patted the bed next to her. He sat. She took his hand, examined his knuckles. No blood this time. No injuries. It's handled? She asked. For now. For now. Resnick's still out there. But he knows I'm coming. And then what? Zeraldo was quiet. Then it ends, he said finally. One way or another. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I meant what I said, about being worried. I know, this life you lead. I know. She lifted her head, looked at him. We should talk. About the future. About what happens when this is over. Okay. Not tonight. You're exhausted. Tomorrow then. She kissed him. Soft. Gentle. A reminder that despite everything, despite the violence and the danger and the impossible choices, this was still real. They were still real. Come to bed, she whispered. He did, and for a few hours, the storm outside quieted, but dawn was coming, and with it, the reckoning Zeraldo had promised. Day 5, 3:47 a.m. Zeraldo couldn't sleep. He stood at the bedroom window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, while Stephanie slept behind him in the bed they'd shared for 3 years. His mind worked through scenarios, contingencies, chess moves on a board that was getting more complicated by the hour. Resnick knew about Mateo. Resnick knew about Street Gabriel, but Resnick didn't know about Stephanie. That was the only advantage Zeraldo had left. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. He grabbed it before it could wake her. A message from his head of security. Gregor Sidorov secured. Location Alpha. Waiting for you. Zeraldo typed back. On my way. He dressed quietly. Black pants, black shirt. The shoulder holster he only wore when he expected things to get complicated. Stephanie stirred. Where are you going? Her voice was thick with sleep. Work. At 4 in the morning? He walked to the bed. Kissed her forehead. Go back to sleep. She caught his hand. Be careful. Always. She didn't believe him. Neither did he, but they both pretended. Location, Alpha, 4:31 a.m. The abandoned factory on the waterfront had served many purposes over the years. Legitimate business. Storage facility. Meeting ground for transactions that couldn't happen in daylight. Now it was an interrogation room. Gregor Sidorov sat in a metal chair in the center of the empty warehouse floor, hands zip-tied behind his back, face bruised, lip split. He'd resisted when they'd grabbed him outside his apartment, fought hard enough to break one man's nose before 3 others subdued him. He was a survivor, a professional, but professionals broke just like everyone else. It just took longer. Zeraldo walked across the concrete floor, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. 2 of his men stood in the shadows, silent, watching. Sidorov looked up. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Zeraldo Brito. His accent was thick, Eastern European. I wondered when you'd come. You knew I would. Men like you always do. Sidorov tried to smile. Failed. You want information? Yes. And if I give it to you, what? You let me go? Maybe. You're lying. Probably. Zeraldo pulled up a chair, sat down facing him. But you'll talk anyway. The only question is how long it takes. Sidorov studied him, calculating, measuring, looking for weakness. He wouldn't find any. You sent Ray and Finn to my wife's hospital, Zeraldo said quietly. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You arranged the team, you gave them the location, you told them where to find Mateo. Sidorov said nothing. Zeraldo leaned forward. They pointed guns at my wife, Gregor. Do you understand what that means? I don't know your wife. Exactly. You sent armed men to kill someone in a hospital, and you didn't even know who else would be there. You didn't care. It's just business. Ziraldo's hand moved faster than Sidorov could track. Grabbed his throat, squeezed. Not enough to crush. Just enough to make breathing difficult. It stopped being business, Ziraldo said, voice absolutely calm, the moment you involved her. He released him. Sidorov gasped, coughed. Who hired you? Ziraldo asked. Sidorov wiped blood from his mouth with his shoulder. You already know. I want to hear you say it. Alexei Reznik. What did he pay you? 60,000. Half up front, half on completion. And the assassination attempt at the warehouse? I arranged it. Dmitry Kovach was the front man. Reznik provided the financing and the intel. What intel? Sidorov hesitated. Ziraldo waited. Someone on your side, Sidorov said finally. Someone gave Reznik your schedule, your security details, everything he needed to plan the hit. The words hit like ice water. Who? I don't know. Reznik didn't tell me. He just said the source was reliable. Ziraldo stood, paced. Someone inside his organization. Someone he trusted. Someone who'd betrayed him for money, or fear, or ambition. How long has Reznik been planning this? He asked. 8 months. Maybe more. He's been careful, methodical, building resources, making alliances. What alliances? I don't have names, but he's got political cover, financial backing. This isn't just about territory, it's about legitimacy. Ziraldo understood. Reznik wasn't trying to be a crime lord. He was trying to be a businessman with criminal infrastructure. Respectable, untouchable, and Ziraldo was in the way. What else? Ziraldo demanded. He's already moving on your assets, legal challenges, regulatory pressure. He's got lawyers and accountants doing what the assassins couldn't. And if I'm removed? Your operations collapse. Your lieutenants fight for scraps. Reznik sweeps in and consolidates. Clean, legal, no mess. Ziraldo nodded slowly. It was actually a good plan, which made it more dangerous. Where is Reznik now? I don't know. Gregor. I swear I don't know. He uses cutouts, encrypted communications. I've never met him face to face. Ziraldo studied him, believed him. What about his operations? Where does he run things from? He's got properties all over the city. Office buildings, warehouses, legitimate fronts. I can give you addresses, but he moves around. Never stays in one place too long. Smart. That's why he's still alive. Ziraldo smiled without humor. Not for long. St. Gabriel Medical Center, 6:15 a.m. Stephanie started her shift the same way she always did. 4th floor break room, window facing east, espresso from the Italian cafe. But today felt different. The staff watched her differently, whispered when she passed. Dr. Patel approached her at the nurse's station. We need to talk, he said quietly. About what happened yesterday. Stephanie didn't look up from her chart. A patient was threatened. Security responded. It's handled. That wasn't security, Stephanie. Wasn't it? You know it wasn't. Patel lowered his voice. Who was that man? A visitor. Don't insult my intelligence. She finally looked at him. What do you want me to say, David? The truth would be nice. The truth is that I'm a nurse. I take care of patients. And yesterday, someone tried to hurt a patient under my care. Someone stopped them. That's all you need to know. Is it? She held his gaze. Steady. Unflinching. Patel shook his head. Be careful, Stephanie. Whatever you're involved in. I'm involved in saving lives. Same as you. It didn't look that way yesterday. Then maybe you weren't looking closely enough. She walked away, left him standing at the nurse's station with more questions than answers. Location, Alpha, 7, 2, A, M. Sidorov had given them everything. Addresses, financial accounts, communication protocols, a roadmap to Reznik's entire operation. Ziraldo stood in the corner of the warehouse, phone to his ear, coordinating with his team. I want legal pressure on every property he owns. Environmental violations, zoning issues, tax audits. Make it expensive to operate. Done. And freeze his offshore accounts. Use the shell company we set up in Panama. Route it through the Cayman contacts. Understood. What about the political connections? We're identifying them now. Should have names by tonight. Good. When you do, apply pressure. Quietly. No public scandals. Just make them nervous enough to distance themselves. Consider it done. Ziraldo ended the call, looked at Sidorov, who was watching him with a mix of fear and grudging respect. You're going to destroy him, Sidorov said. Yes. He'll fight back. Let him. This could get messy. It already is messy. Zeraldo walked closer. He sent men to my wife's hospital. There's no coming back from that. Sidorov nodded slowly, understanding. What happens to me? He asked. Zeraldo considered. Sidorov was a facilitator, a middleman, useful for information but ultimately expendable. In the old days, Zeraldo would have eliminated him without hesitation. No witnesses, no loose ends. But Stephanie's voice echoed in his mind. Be careful, not just with his life. With his soul. You disappear, Zeraldo said finally. New city, new identity, and you never speak about this to anyone. Ever. And if I do, I'll know, and I'll find you, and what happened to you tonight will feel like mercy. Sidorov swallowed hard. Understood. Zeraldo gestured to his men. Get him out of here. They cut the zip ties, hauled Sidorov to his feet, walked him to a waiting van. Zeraldo watched them leave, then pulled out his phone, called his financial team. Start the cascade. I want Resnick's assets frozen by noon, his businesses audited by end of day, and his connections scrambling by nightfall. That's aggressive. It's war. And he started it. Private Estate 8:34 a.m. Zeraldo returned home to find Stephanie in the kitchen, still in her scrubs, coffee in hand. You're home early, he said. Double shift got cancelled. Budget cuts. She looked at him. You look exhausted. Long night. Did you find what you needed? Yes. She walked to him, touched his face. What happens now? I take everything Resnick has, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. And then? Then he makes a choice. Disappear or die. She was quiet for a long moment. This is who you are. It wasn't a question. Yes. And I married you knowing that. Yes. She kissed him. Soft. Deliberate. Then finish it, she whispered. But come back to me. Always. She stepped back. I'm going to shower. Then sleep. Wake me if the world ends. I will. She walked upstairs, left him standing in the kitchen with the weight of what came next. Zeraldo pulled out his phone, made one final call. It's time. Execute the plan. Everything we discussed. I want Resnick crippled by end of business today. Understood. He ended the call. Looked out the window at the city waking up. Somewhere out there, Alexei Resnick was about to learn what happened when you threatened the wrong man's wife. The storm was coming, and Zeraldo Brito was bringing it. 11:47 a.m. The first domino fell at exactly noon. Resnick's primary shipping contract, valued at $4.2 million annually, was terminated with immediate effect. Environmental violations, paperwork irregularities, issues that had existed for months, but were suddenly, inexplicably, priorities for the regulatory board. The second domino fell at 12:34 p.m. His main distribution network received notice of a federal audit. Tax discrepancies dating back 3 years. Nothing concrete yet. Just enough smoke to make his partners nervous. By 1:15 p.m., the third domino tipped. His offshore accounts, the ones hidden behind shell corporations in Panama and the Cayman Islands, were frozen, pending investigation into money laundering allegations. Zeraldo sat in his estate office, watching reports come in on 3 different screens. His phone rang constantly. Updates. Confirmations. Complications. He handled each one with surgical precision. The warehouse on 5th Street? He asked. Condemned. Structural violations. The restaurant chain? Health department shut down 2 locations. More coming. Political connections? Senator Mitchell's office returned Resnick's donation. Said they're re-evaluating their donor relationships. Zeraldo allowed himself a small smile. Fear was contagious in political circles. Once one connection broke, others followed. Self-preservation always won. 2:43 p.m. Alexei Resnick stood in his penthouse office, phone pressed to his ear, listening to his lawyer explain why 12 of his businesses were suddenly under investigation. This isn't coincidence, Resnick said coldly. No, it's not. Can you stop it? Some of it. Maybe. But whoever's orchestrating this has serious resources, political connections, financial leverage we can't match. Resnick ended the call, threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. His second in command, Mikhail, stood near the door. Brito, Mikhail said quietly. Obviously. He's moving faster than we anticipated. Because we failed to kill him, and worse, we exposed ourselves. Resnick paced. Ray and Finn? Haven't reported in. Assumed captured or dead. The hospital patient? Moved. Location unknown. Resnick slammed his fist on the desk. We had one job. Kill one wounded man in a hospital. And we couldn't even manage that. What do you want to do? Resnick was quiet for a long moment. Calculating. Reassessing. Pull back. Consolidate what we can. Protect the core assets. And Brito? We negotiate. Mikhail stared at him. You want to negotiate? After everything? I want to survive. Resnick's voice was cold, pragmatic. And right now, Brito is dismantling everything we've built. We either negotiate or we lose everything. He won't negotiate. Not after we sent men to his wife's hospital. Resnick froze. What did you say? The hospital. St. Gabriel. That's where the patient was. That's where we sent Ray and Finn. I know that. What about his wife? Mikhail pulled out his phone. Showed him a report from one of their informants. Security footage. Grainy. Time-stamped from the night before. A woman in blue scrubs standing between two armed men and a hospital bed. And then Zeraldo Brito walking through the doors. The way he looked at her first. The way he asked if she was hurt. The way he dismantled two armed men in seconds because they'd threatened her. Resnick's face went pale. His wife works there? Apparently. We pointed guns at his wife? Yes. Resnick sat down slowly. We're dead. We can still... No. Resnick's voice was hollow. We're dead. We just don't know it yet. 4:17 p.m. By late afternoon, Resnick had lost 40% of his operational capacity. Warehouses shut down. Accounts frozen. Partners distancing themselves. The carefully constructed empire he'd built over 15 years was collapsing in real time. And everyone knew who was responsible. Zeraldo Brito, the man who didn't just retaliate, he erased. 6:52 p.m. Zeraldo received the call he'd been waiting for. Unknown number. He answered. Brito. Resnick's voice was tight, controlled. Resnick, we need to talk. No, we don't. I'm willing to negotiate. Territory. Operations. Whatever you want. I want you gone. Silence. Gone where? I don't care. Out of this city. Out of this business. Disappear. And if I refuse? Then I finish what I started. And trust me, Alexei, you don't want that. You can't destroy me completely. I have resources. Had resources. Past tense. Zeraldo's voice was calm. Final. By tomorrow morning you'll have nothing. No money. No properties. No connections. No crew. That's impossible. Is it? Check your accounts. Check your properties. Check your phone. And see how many people are still taking your calls. Zeraldo could hear Resnick breathing heavily on the other end. You have 24 hours, Zeraldo continued. Pack what you can carry. Leave the city. Don't come back. And if I don't, then you'll wish I'd killed you at the warehouse. Zeraldo ended the call, sat back in his chair. The chess game was over. Resnick just hadn't accepted it yet. 8:34 p.m. Stephanie came home to find Zeraldo on the balcony, watching the city. Silent, she walked out to join him. Is it done? She asked. Almost. What happens tomorrow? Resnick disappears. Or he doesn't. Either way, it ends. She took his hand. And after that? He looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who'd stood between guns and a patient because it was the right thing to do. The woman who'd married him knowing exactly what he was. The woman who deserved better than a life spent waiting for violence to find them. After that, he said quietly, we talk about the future. Okay, a real future. Not this. She squeezed his hand. I'd like that. They stood together as the sun set over the city. Tomorrow would bring resolution, one way or another. But tonight, they had this, each other. And for the first time in days, that felt like enough. Day 6, 7:23 a.m. Alexei Resnick didn't disappear. He made one final mistake. Pride. Instead of running, he tried to consolidate. Called in favors. Reached out to connections who'd already abandoned him. By 9 a.m., Zeraldo knew. By 10 a.m., his team had located Resnick's position. By 11 a.m., it was over. Stephanie was in surgery when Zeraldo's message came through. It's done. Coming home. She didn't ask for details. Didn't need them. She finished the procedure, closed the incision, handed off to recovery, went home. 2:47 p.m. Zeraldo was sitting in the living room when she arrived. Still in the same clothes from this morning. Tired, but calm. She sat down next to him. Tell me, she said quietly. Resnick's gone. Out of the city. Out of the business. He won't be back. You didn't kill him. No. Why not? He was quiet for a moment. Because you asked me to be careful. And I'm trying. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Thank you. They sat in silence for several minutes. Then Stephanie spoke. We need to talk about what happens next. I know. This can't keep happening, Zeraldo. People coming after you. Coming after people close to you. Coming after me. I know. She sat up, looked at him directly. I want children someday. A family. But not like this. Not with armed men showing up at hospitals. Not with violence always one phone call away. I understand. Do you? Because I need to know if you can actually step back. Not just say it. Actually do it. Zeraldo took her hands. 3 years ago, you asked me if I could walk away if things got too dangerous. I said I'd try. I meant it then. I mean it now. Trying isn't enough anymore. I know. He held her gaze. So I'm not going to try. I'm going to do it. What does that mean? It means I start reducing operations, legitimizing what I can, selling off what I can't. It'll take time, maybe a year, maybe 2, but I'll do it. Why? Because the alternative is losing you, and that's not acceptable. Her eyes filled with tears. You'd give up everything you've built? Not everything, just the parts that put you in danger. Zeraldo. I mean it, Stephanie. What happened at your hospital? Seeing those guns pointed at you. His voice cracked slightly. I can't live with that. I won't. She kissed him, deep, desperate, grateful. We'll do it together, she whispered. Figure out what comes next. Build something different. Together, he agreed. They held each other as afternoon light filtered through the windows. The violence wasn't over. It never truly was in their world, but the trajectory had changed. And for the first time, the future felt like something worth planning for. 5:15 p.m. Stephanie's phone rang. Street Gabriel Medical Center. This is Stephanie. We need you back. Multi-vehicle accident. All hands. She looked at Zeraldo. He nodded. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She grabbed her bag. Kissed him goodbye. I'll be home late. I'll wait. She smiled. I know. 11:52 p.m. Stephanie came home exhausted. 3 critical patients, 2 surgeries, 1 loss. Zeraldo was still awake, had dinner waiting, wine poured. How was it? He asked. Hard. But we saved 2 of 3. That's something. They ate in comfortable silence. Then Zeraldo spoke. I met with my lawyers today. Started the process. What process? Transitioning operations. Selling assets. Going legitimate. Stephanie set down her fork. You're serious? Yes. How long? 18 months. Maybe less if things move smoothly. And after that? After that, I'm just a businessman with a complicated past. And you're just a nurse with a complicated husband. She laughed. Actually laughed. Just. He confirmed. She stood. Walked around the table. Sat in his lap. I love you, she said. I love you too. Even when this gets hard? Especially then. She rested her forehead against his. And for the first time in 6 days, she felt like they might actually make it through this. Together. Day 7. Street Gabriel Medical Center looked exactly the same. Same beige brick, same narrow windows, same fluorescent lights humming overhead, but something had shifted. Stephanie felt it the moment she walked through the ER doors. Staff watched her differently, not with fear, not with judgment, with respect tinged with curiosity. Dr. Patel approached her at the nurse's station. How's our mystery patient? He asked carefully. Transferred, recovering well. Good. He paused. And the visitor? Also well? Patel nodded slowly. I'm not going to ask questions, Stephanie. But if you ever need anything... I know. Thank you. He walked away, left her with the charts and the routines and the familiar rhythms of the hospital she'd worked in for years. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. 10:34 a.m. Mateo was sitting in a private recovery facility across town when his phone rang. Zeraldo. How are you feeling? Like I got shot, but alive. Thanks to your wife. She's good at her job. She's terrifying. In the best way. Zeraldo smiled. I know. What's the damage? Mateo asked. Resnick's gone. Operations are secure. The insider who planted the tracker has been handled. Who was it? Nobody you knew. Mid-level. Got greedy. Mateo was quiet. And us? The organization? Changing. Slowly. But changing. Because of her. Because of her. Zeraldo confirmed. Good. You deserve that. So do you. Take time. Heal. When you're ready, We'll talk about what comes next. Understood. Zeraldo ended the call, looked out the window of his office. The city stretched before him. His city, for now. But soon, something different. Something quieter. Something that didn't end with guns in hospitals. 3:47 p.m. Stephanie's shift ended at 4. She changed out of her scrubs, grabbed her bag, walked through the parking lot to where the black car waited. Same driver, same tinted windows. But this time, when she slid into the back seat, Zeraldo was there. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. "Picking up my wife from work. Is that allowed?" She smiled. "It's allowed." The car pulled away from St. Gabriel, drove through the industrial quarter, past the warehouses and the docks, toward the estate that had become her home. "How was your day?" Zeraldo asked. "Normal. Yours?" "Productive. Started liquidating the warehouse properties. Meeting with accountants tomorrow about the shipping contracts." "This is really happening." "Yes." She took his hand. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For choosing this. For choosing us." He lifted her hand, kissed her knuckles. "Easiest choice I ever made." 6:15 p.m. They had dinner on the balcony. Pasta, wine, candlelight, normal, domestic, peaceful. "I was thinking," Stephanie said, "about taking that vacation you promised me 3 years ago." "Where do you want to go?" "Somewhere quiet. No phones, no emergencies, just us." "Italy? Perfect. 2 weeks?" "Make it 3. He smiled. "Done." They talked about the future, about plans, about possibilities, about children someday, a house somewhere quieter, a life that didn't require armed security and encrypted phones. It felt impossible. It felt necessary. It felt real. 11:23 p.m. Stephanie stood at the bedroom window, looking out at the city. Zeraldo came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how we got here. About where we're going." "Regrets?" "No, never." She turned to face him. "You? Only that it took me this long to see what matters." "And what matters?" "You. This. Us." She kissed him. Slow, deep, certain. "Come to bed," she whispered. "In a minute." She walked away, left him at the window. Zeraldo looked out at the city one more time. Tomorrow he'd meet with lawyers, start dissolving the empire he'd built, begin the slow process of becoming someone different, someone better. For her. But tonight, he was still Zeraldo Brito, and the woman sleeping in his bed was still Stephanie, the nurse who'd stood between guns and a patient, the wife who'd married into violence and demanded something better, the person who'd changed everything, without even trying. He walked to the bed, slid in beside her. She curled against him automatically. Safe, loved, home. And somewhere across the city, in the ER of St. Gabriel Medical Center, the night shift continued. Lives saved, crises managed, the endless work of healing, where Stephanie Brito would return tomorrow, still just a nurse, still exactly who she'd always been. But now, finally, with a future that looked like peace. Thanks for sticking with this story until the very end. You're the reason these stories feel alive. If you're ready for another powerful journey, just tap the next video on your screen. And before you go, leave a quick comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I'm excited to read your thoughts and connect with you in the comments.